At some point, we all go through situations that seem to have no way out. Problems that make us feel small, as if we were at the mercy of difficulties. But there is a source of power that is always at our disposal: prayer. Much more than words, prayer is a direct connection with God, an opportunity to surrender our pain, anxieties, and uncertainties to Him, and trust that He can transform any circumstance, no matter how difficult it may seem. Prayer is an invisible force that acts powerfully in the lives of those who believe. It may not be something that can be seen or touched, but its effects are felt deeply. Through prayer, people find comfort, a sense of peace, and an answer to their anguish. It is like a bridge that connects us directly to God, opening the way for the miracle we desire to see, even when circumstances seem insurmountable. Often, in the most difficult moments, prayer becomes our refuge. When the world seems to collapse around us, kneeling in prayer can bring us strength we did not know we had. Even without guarantees of immediate change, prayer gives us hope and spiritual resilience to face challenges that previously seemed impossible. It is in this silent communication with God that we find the strength to continue, even when everything we see around us suggests otherwise. A practical example of this invisible strength is in those who face serious illnesses. Many doctors report that patients who pray or are the target of prayers are able to get through the worst moments with an inexplicable serenity. This does not mean that physical healing will be guaranteed, but the inner transformation that prayer brings is real. And this change begins in the heart, transforming despair into hope. Prayer is much more than words spoken in moments of affliction. It is a powerful tool for transformation. When we pray, we place our fears, weaknesses, and desires before God, making room for true change. This act shapes us, makes us see the world and circumstances with different eyes, because when we pray, we are moved to believe that something greater is at work. Transformation begins within us, in the heart that aligns itself with God's will. One important change that prayer brings is in the way we deal with difficulties. Problems that previously seemed impossible to solve begin to be faced with more serenity. Prayer strengthens our spiritual resilience and makes us understand that we cannot always change situations, but we can change how we react to them. A practical example would be praying in the midst of a financial crisis, asking not only for a miraculous solution, but for wisdom to deal with finances more prudently. Furthermore, prayer transforms us into more empathetic and compassionate people. When we take a moment to pray for others, especially in times of crisis, we begin to understand that our journey is not alone. Intercession for our friends, family, or even strangers brings us closer to the essence of loving our neighbors, which also transforms the way we live and interact with the world around us. The Bible is full of stories that demonstrate the transformative power of prayer. One of the most striking examples is that of Daniel in the lion's den. Condemned for praying, Daniel trusted in God and continued to pray, even in the midst of persecution. His faith was rewarded with a miracle. God closed the lions' mouths, and he emerged unharmed. This story is a testament to the fact that prayer can transform desperate situations into great victories when we trust in God's power. Another inspiring example is that of Hannah, who prayed fervently for a son. Hannah was barren and suffered because of it, but her persistence in prayer brought a surprising answer. God heard her cry, and she gave birth to Samuel, who became a great prophet. Hannah teaches us that even when all seems lost, prayer has the power to transform our reality. Perseverance in prayer is a key to seeing God act in surprising ways. Jesus himself showed us the power of prayer in his life. Before his crucifixion, he prayed intensely in the Garden of Gethsemane, seeking strength to face the pain that would come. Although his circumstances did not change, prayer strengthened him to move forward and fulfill his purpose. These biblical examples illustrate that prayer not only transforms what is around us, but transforms our soul, preparing us to face any challenge with faith and courage. During the most difficult moments in life, prayer acts as a true foundation, strengthening our faith. When we face situations that seem insurmountable, it is in prayer that we find the certainty that God is with us, listening to us and giving us strength. Each time we pray and feel this connection, our faith is renewed, allowing us to remain firm, even in the face of the greatest obstacles. Praying is like watering the seed of faith, causing it to grow and become unshakable. Prayer also helps us remember that we are not alone in the battles of life. Sometimes problems seem too big to be solved by our own strength. In those moments, Prayer is like placing our challenges in God's hands and trusting that He knows what is best for us. As we do this, our faith is strengthened as we learn to trust in God's timing and solutions, knowing that He is in control of everything. A practical example of this is when a person faces a family crisis, such as a struggling marriage. By praying, they can find wisdom and patience to deal with the situation in a more loving way. In addition, the act of praying strengthens their faith that, in time, things can be restored. Prayer not only gives us strength to face challenges, but it also makes us believe that God is working, even when we cannot see immediate results. Real-life testimonies show the power of prayer in tangible ways. Many can relate times when they prayed in faith and saw profound changes in their circumstances. A common example is that of people who faced serious illnesses and, through prayer, experienced healing or miracles. These stories are reminders that prayer can go beyond what we imagine, bringing spiritual solutions and divine interventions that defy all human logic. There are also stories of people who, in times of financial crisis, found a way out after giving themselves over to prayer. These people report that, instead of just asking for money, they prayed for wisdom and opportunities, and over time, they noticed doors opening in unexpected ways. These testimonies show that prayer not only transforms our circumstances, but gives us clarity to see opportunities that previously seemed invisible. The most impactful testimonies, however, are those that show inner transformations. Many report that when they prayed in moments of anxiety and despair, they received an inexplicable peace. Even though external problems still existed, prayer brought about a change in their hearts, providing spiritual resilience. These are stories that inspire us to believe that God answers prayers, even if the answer is not immediate or exactly as we expected. Prayer is, above all, an act of surrender and trust. When we pray, we are recognizing that there are limits to what we can do for ourselves and that we depend on something greater, divine intervention. The surrender that occurs in prayer is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom, because it is at that moment that we stop fighting alone and hand our burdens over to God, trusting that He knows the best path forward. This act of trust is often what allows us to experience miracles and unexpected solutions. By surrendering ourselves to God through prayer, we find a peace that the world cannot offer. Even in times of crisis, when everything seems to be falling apart, trusting in God gives us the serenity of knowing that He is in control. A practical way to cultivate this trust is to pray consistently, not only in times of despair, but also in times of gratitude and celebration. In this way, we create an ongoing relationship with God, which makes it easier to trust Him in the most difficult times. For example, imagine someone who is struggling with unemployment. When they pray, they may be surrendering to the fact that no matter how hard they try, there are things that are beyond their control. Prayer, in this case, becomes a channel of trust, where they turn their worries over to God and find peace in knowing that a door will open at the right time. This surrender brings not only relief but also renewed hope in prayer. Intercession is one of the most powerful forms of prayer because it allows us to pray for others, seeking divine intervention in their lives. When we intercede, we are asking God to act in situations that we cannot resolve on our own, whether to bring healing, comfort, or spiritual solutions. The beauty of intercession is in its generosity. As we pray for others, we often see our own lives being blessed as well. It is as if, by helping to carry the burden of others, God is easing our own. Interceding for someone is an expression of love and compassion. When we hear about someone in crisis or suffering, the first practical action we can take is to get on our knees and pray to God for that person. This type of prayer also strengthens our faith because it teaches us to trust not only in our own prayers, but in the power of God to act in ways that go beyond our imagination. Intercession reminds us that prayer is a spiritual solution to life's most complex problems. A practical example is when friends or family members are facing illness or emotional difficulties. Rather than simply offering words of comfort, intercession allows us to act in another realm, the spiritual. Praying for these people can bring comfort to both them and us because we know that we are doing our part by presenting their struggles to God. The power of intercessory prayer lies in the union of faith, where we believe that God answers prayers in a powerful way. Transforming difficult situations through prayer requires more than just words. It involves intention, faith, and an attitude of trust. The first practical tip is to establish a prayer routine. Setting aside a moment each day, whether in the morning or at night, to talk to God allows prayer to become a habit. This way, instead of resorting to prayer only in times of crisis, it becomes a constant foundation in our lives. This helps us to be spiritually prepared when challenges arise. Another tip is to be specific in your prayers. Instead of praying in a general way, it is important to present the details of the situation before God. Asking for clarity, wisdom, and strength to face that specific problem helps to direct our prayer and our faith. For example, if someone is facing difficulties at work, they can pray for patience, for an opportunity for growth, or for specific solutions to conflicts they are facing. This brings focus and makes us feel more connected to the spiritual solution. Finally, it is essential to combine prayer and action. Prayer is powerful, but it also motivates us to act according to God's direction. When we pray for transformation, we must be alert to the opportunities that arise and act in faith. If someone is praying for a new job opportunity, it is also important to update their resume, search for vacancies, and network. Prayer and action go hand in hand because God blesses both the effort and the faith of those who trust in Him. Prayer and action are two sides of the same coin on the path to transformation. When we pray, we are not simply waiting for God to do everything for us. On the contrary, we are seeking guidance and strength to act. Prayer connects us with God's will, and often the answer comes through an impulse to make decisions or perform actions that we had not previously considered. Therefore, praying without acting is like asking for a harvest without planting the seed. This relationship between prayer and action is evident in biblical stories. A clear example is that of Nehemiah, who prayed intensely before rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. After his prayers, he took action, leading and organizing the work so that the miracle could happen. This balance between trusting God and, at the same time, doing our part is essential to transforming the difficulties we face. Prayer gives us clarity and motivation to move forward, but it is action that materializes the changes we ask for. In everyday life, this can be applied in a practical way. If someone prays for improved health, in addition to trusting God, they should also adopt healthy habits, such as a balanced diet and physical exercise. Likewise, when we pray for peace in our relationships, we should act with kindness and forgiveness. Prayer strengthens our faith, but it is through action that we demonstrate this faith in movement. Prayer has an ongoing power that goes beyond isolated moments. It is not just a tool for times of crisis, but a constant practice that keeps us connected to God in all phases of life. The power of prayer does not end in a single situation. It is an inexhaustible source of comfort, guidance, and strength. As we cultivate a life of prayer, we find that it continually shapes and transforms us, adjusting our hearts and minds to face adversity with faith. A life of prayer brings about gradual but profound transformation. The impact is not only in the immediate answers we seek, but also in the spiritual growth we experience over time. Prayer, when practiced daily, makes us more sensitive to God's voice and gives us wisdom to deal with situations that might otherwise shake us. It is a process that strengthens our spiritual resilience and prepares us for future challenges. This ongoing power of prayer is also revealed in the small things of everyday life. We do not need to wait for major crises to pray. By bringing our daily concerns, our plans, and even our joys to God, we strengthen our relationship with Him. This makes us realize that, regardless of the circumstances, prayer is always a spiritual solution available to guide, transform, and renew our lives, constantly reminding us that God answers prayers in an ongoing and loving way. After all we have seen, it is clear that prayer is much more than a religious practice. It is a spiritual force capable of transforming lives and situations. It strengthens us in times of crisis, brings miracles, and connects us directly to God, regardless of the size of the problem we face. Prayer has the power to shape us, to change what is around us, and often to change ourselves. But prayer is not just a one-off solution. It must be ongoing, a daily practice that renews us and gives us hope. Now I ask you, have you experienced the power of prayer in your life? What areas of your life need transformation the most? Remember, no matter how big the challenges, God answers prayers and is always ready to guide us. If you have already witnessed the power of prayer, share your experiences in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue learning about the transformative power of prayer and other topics that can strengthen you spiritually. I hope this content has touched your heart.